Are you a fan of pro wrestling, comedy, and combat sports? Then we have the podcast for you because we cover that and much, much more.
Do you like to debate with your friends? Do we have the perfect segment for you? It's the 531, where we take any given subject, break it down to a top 5. From there, we debate it down to 3, and then into that number 1 spot.
If you want to get a hold of us, find us on our social medias. Search Working Fans Podcast on any major social media platform. And if you want to find the podcast, search for us on any major podcast platform, as well as YouTube.
Working Fans Podcast. We put in the work so you don't have to.
As always, we are brought to you by Pro Wrestling Vault Volume 1, available at WrestleVille.com, where you can also get Lance by Chance. We are brought to you by Super Vows and Pas de Deux by Kevin Kelton, available on Amazon. AO Money Meech, Camouflage, When the Deadbolt Breaks, Buzzard Canyon, the great people over at Connecticut People Records, our wrestling commentary home of New Heights Wrestling. And today, we are talking wrestling DVDs, and this is almost at this point where DVD technology is at. This is almost an archaic topic, which is very surprising, but wrestling has capitalized on the DVDs greatly. One of the biggest is the WWE. Used to release 3-disc sets where you could get the best of Raw and SmackDown, the best of the pay-per-views, or you would get a documentary and then matches from a particular person. Going into the digital age, will they still be making DVDs? Will these be just digital sets? And when you think about wrestling DVDs, a company that comes to mind is PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla. They do wrestling events, but they are primarily a DVD company now. And will they move on just to digital files for things like that? When I came back into wrestling, the ROH DVDs were the thing to get, probably the hottest indie at that time. And hey, happy Easter, Randy. Yeah, this is an Easter edition of the Working Fans Daily Content. Really trying to get it out. This is the last topic of things that I had written down previously for this. Now, at the end of today's daily content, I'll go over the schedule that I'm looking at for next week, and we'll see how this moves along. Now, a DVD market that I don't think is ever going to go out is the Jim Cornette DVDs over at Jim Cornette, or I think it's Cornette'sCollectibles.com. This Midnight Express set, and they have Jim Cornette's career set. And not only do you get the DVDs, but you get this handwritten booklet with notes on the matches from Cornette. And from a mind like that was there, that makes that worth the money alone. I remember, the ECW DVDs were another great one, and kind of parlaying off that, one of the things that I was more proud to get, what I believe is the entire collection of, is the old MLW DVDs. And, I got big into MLW right around when they came back. So to have that original run and see what the product looked like at that time was very interesting. Now, I picked wrestling DVDs because I remember when I got back into wrestling, it was when my brother was watching it and I wasn't, and he got me a Best of War Games Blu-ray and the CM Punk WWE DVD, and I wasn't familiar with CM Punk at all. And that DVD I thought was insane. And then I've always been a fan of like the old WCW, NWA Crockett shows and the War Games match in particular. So to have that and the WWE Blu-rays always seem to have Blu-ray exclusives, an extra match or two. So I was pretty pumped for that. The DVDs were great. They took out a lot of the music on the network. They did. That's why, God, especially for ECW, I think it might have been High Spots. No, I think it was RF Video, either RF Video or High Spots at that time. But those ECW originals where they were just playing whatever for music, a lot of those got butchered on the network. And the same with a lot of the old WCW Crockett. Now, this first round of daily content, I just quickly wrote down 7 topics off the top of my head. And I thought it went pretty well. Like, I was pumped about wrestling books. Wrestling documentaries could have been better, but I've watched a few of the documentaries. I didn't want to deep dive onto any particular one, but I just didn't think the delivery came across well. So I wrote up and I kind of thought about next week's daily content list. And on Monday, we will be talking this past weekend's wrestling events, the Windy City Riot, as well as the Wrestling Revolver Swerve South show. Tuesday, I hope to kind of briefly talk about the Monday Night Raw numbers because I'm subscribing to the WrestleNomics Patreon now, and I get the ratings. And I kind of wanted to quickly talk about them, but like I'm not going to deep dive into anything. I'm not going to talk above my head. I'm just going to kind of relate. I know there's a graph that breaks down the quarter hours, what's on the screen at those quarter hours, and kind of where the viewership is. So I won't get into like all the demographic things, but I'll pick out interesting numbers that jump out at me and talk about them. Wednesday, and these are all if I get these numbers in time. These might change as things go on. Wednesday, I'll talk NXT numbers. Thursday, we will talk Dynamite numbers. On Friday, we will talk the upcoming weekend's events, if there are any. Saturday, I will be talking a little New Heights Wrestling that is available on YouTube, and Dave and I have jumped on as the commentary team. And I just kind of want to briefly tell you about some of the competitors there and why you should check out New Heights Wrestling. And then next Sunday, we will just do this past week in wrestling. And, we'll keep these short, nothing deep diving. Friday Night SmackDown was amazing. Randy's asking in the comments, and I thought it was a great time. The LA Knight came out to kick off the night. He was in the dark match, but he came out as Mace's manager, and I was a little disappointed. I mean, glad to see LA Knight on the main roster. It makes sense that they would have him as a manager because he can talk. It was just disappointing kind of to see, but we'll see how it goes forward. The show itself was what it was. You saw it on TV. The thing that I really enjoyed was we got a dark main event of Cody versus Seth Rollins, and that made the night. What didn't make the night was the animals that drive in the parking garage. Like, people are awful. But that's kind of what we have. That's what we've done this week, what we're going to do next week. And let us know on social media in the comments if there's topics you want to hear us cover on these daily segments. This show is going to change. It's going to morph because it's whatever is easiest to do that day. And, we try things out. If we think we can replicate it week after week, we bring it back to you. If we don't think we can do it on a consistent basis, we try not to as much. But as always, thank you for joining us, and we will talk to you again next time.